Hello, beautiful souls. I hope you are well. Today we have two wonderful ladies. It's the first time we have a conversation with the three people. It's going to be it's an interesting thing today. We have a topic of conversation that is extremely important right now in the view of what's happening in the world right now regarding disclosure on different topics. And I thought it was really important to have these two beautiful ladies to for sharing with us about their experiences, their personal experiences, but also some of their practices or things they do, which are related to this incredibly important topic of PTSD among veterans and soldiers in general, and but also other issues that are really important to be disclosed right now, especially in this time of disclosure. Vicky and Dawn, both of you have been on my channel before in a private interview one-on-one in the past, and both of you have shared a really interesting and very powerful experiences that you've had personally. And I think it's really important for me to remind the viewers that both of these interviews are really kind of introductory to what we're going to be talking about today, the three of us. So I really invite each of you to have a look at each of these interviews because it's going to give you a little bit of a background. We're not going to go back in details about each of your lives, but mostly concentrate on these aspects related to the question of PTSD and soldiers and everything, and veterans and everything that has been happening for many, many years that have not been disclosed. So first of all, I want to say hello, Vicky, and hello, Dawn.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
It's
And
an
it's great
honor.
to
It's an honor. I enjoyed to have you both on the channel again. You have some really, really important topics to talk about. So without further ado, I'm just going to let each of you introduce yourself and tell us for each of you in what ways this topic important for you and why you would want to have this really important conversation today. So Vicky, would you like to start?
Thank you, first of all, Abigail, for allowing us this platform so we can talk. I mean, it's so important, and it's great to meet Dawn finally. So I think we have a lot in common and a lot to share, and hopefully this will help others to come out and create a force that we can help each other and change everything as much as we can. With that said, my name is Vicky. I basically want to do this because I had my experience with my dad. My dad was in the army. He served 2 years. He was, it was during the Korean War. He was stationed in Germany, and he had an accident, and the tank hit him in the back of the head. So he basically was unconscious for a few days. But I think going back now, I can understand why his personality was the way he was, and why he eventually had Alzheimer's. So this is for me connecting, and obviously the PTSD and his depression, and so forth, definitely started to come out, and as an adult, seeing him go through this, and then obviously affecting the family. And that's the other thing, that the soldiers come back and they have a family, or they create a family, and they just unfortunately affects the family as well. So there's layers upon layers of how this trickles down. And then fortunately, and I think Dawn and Abigail can attest that at one point somebody has to say, okay, where can we turn this around? Because it affected me. It affected my sisters. I had some form of PTSD for sure, because during our childhood it was a lot of stress, and it started to come up as an adult. And with that said, I started to look for things to help me, and hence I got into Buddhism and yoga and other types of modalities to help me reduce all these effects of stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD. But it doesn't, stop there. You start hearing other people suffering from this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, how many people are suffering silently, or they do tell you, and some of them just don't want to be here, unfortunately. And that's the other part of the conversation, they want to terminate their life, and some of them accomplish it. And to know that they left without knowing that there were options, it's really sad. So I hope that with our conversation, we can stir up, ways that we can help not only ourselves, for those that are still struggling, and that we can connect and find finally some sort of resolution for this. So that in a short snippet, this is, pretty much where I'm at right now.
Thank you, Vicky. I just want to ask you a little bit about, you've mentioned in a previous interview that you are doing voluntary work close to veterans who are suffering from PTSD and everything. Would you like to talk a little bit more about just this practice?
So last year I signed up. I took, it's called The Long Walk Home. And actually I just finished reading his book. This is Ron Zelensky. He actually served in Vietnam. Well, actually, he was served 2 years of Marines during the Vietnam War. Long story short, he decided to obviously help, because he felt that, again, veterans were coming back and they didn't have the coping mechanisms. I'll talk more about him because his story is fascinating. But I wanted to do something, and I moved to the west side of Florida. So I said I really felt the need of volunteering. And I came up, I encounter Ron and his nonprofit organization. And what he does is basically he has a 10-step challenge to help veterans, the military transition from military life to civilian life. And he came up with 10 questions that are very, very profound and challenging. And I think it really helps the veterans and military family to start the healing process, So I can, eventually go over some of the questions if you like. And I would encourage anybody that, that's either military or have family members that can join, and they can take the challenge. They do as well have, a suicide hotline. I think it's the veteran suicide hotline, and they do have programs to train people to help, these people that are calling, and that would be kind of like a possible second step for me to take, but it's in another state, so I would have to travel to take that, that course. But I feel that this is definitely the beginning of something, because with the knowledge that we have right now, we can see how we can help. It's not like a one size fits all. I feel that everybody can use something. This can be a start, but some people may be good at having meditation. Some may be good at having I don't know, other types of treatments like essential oils, or so it depends on where they're at and what they're open to. So I feel that there's so many, after going myself like a guinea pig, doing a lot of stuff. As you probably know, Abigail, I tried certain stuff that probably people would not be, keen to doing it, but I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. If it takes me to experiment,
that inner work.
I'll do it,
Absolutely.
So I feel that we can definitely help individuals where they're at what point they're at, with different modalities, but Ron's 10-step challenge is I think is very good. And I've been able to go through the process. We had like 100 servicemen that actually volunteered, and we had 25 mentors, and we all took like 5 or 6 people. And as you're doing it, you as well are helping yourself. So it's a win-win situation. So Absolutely. It's pretty cool. It's
I
pretty
think
cool.
it's Vicky, I think it's a beautiful thing that I didn't thought about that we're going sort of flowingly through this interview, but perhaps at the end of our interview, it would be interesting if both of you want to bring those really tangible tools that can be of help to people who are listening or help to the people, you know, they're
Absolutely.
caring for. I think it would be a nice way to
Yeah.
also offer solutions or help rather than just, you know, I think it's important to disclose what's happening, but also to bring
Oh,
solution
yeah.
and in that way work in a positive way. So I think by the
Absolutely.
end of our interview, it would be really nice to have perhaps have you share some of these tools. I think that would
Absolutely.
be really great. Um,
Yeah.
so Vicky, Vicky, Dawn, sorry, would you like to share a little bit with us a little bit of an introduction of how this important topic came into your life on this
Yes,
special day?
on this special day.
Mm.
So today is August 23, and this interview did not happen by coincidence on this day. I wasn't paying attention to when Abigail had set it up, because I was so many things have been going on in my life. I was just like, yeah, sure, let's do it on the 23rd, this and that. I'm getting ready today for the interview and putting everything together. And I'm crossing off the days because I've been that behind lately. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been 3 days already. So I gotta tack, tack, tack. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, today's August 23rd. August 23rd is the day that my daughters and I lost Chris, their father. So in 2016, due to that they were mandated to receive between 1998 and 2001, when everything was happening with the white powders and stuff. So I that I was sitting at work when things were I was questioning a lot of things, and I'm like, what happened to him, because he ended up being diagnosed in 2001 with paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. And this is at that time in 2001, it's, and still today, it's not hereditary. You cannot pass it on to someone else, and you're not born with it. So where did this come from? So I'm at work thinking, is it the food? Because I was already at the time around 2011, that I was like, okay, I know the food's being messed with. I know the air is being messed with, but we're all, breathing and eating the same food. So then we'd all have this stuff. And then in the background on the news we had in our area, they were playing the Andrew Wakefield's A Quack and removing his license information. And I was like, and he was saying, all I'm saying is just to stop for a moment so that I can get a clean and proper study and test. And it hit me right there like lightning. Like I was like, oh my gosh, that's what it is. I was like, what did he get, or what did he go through that we haven't, that this is happening to him? We all know that when you're going into the military, you go in, you have to pass strength tests, physical tests, mental tests, and you have to be healthy as a horse to get in. And one of the things that I was noticing is a lot of military go in very healthy and then come out with problems. So I was like, oh my gosh, it is these things. I just didn't have nobody had the proof at the time. You couldn't even look up and get anything at that moment, but it was that. I was like, that's it. That's it. So when I started finding people like the Dr. Susan Humphreys and others, and that they were attacking and targeting, I was like, ooh, they're giving all this information, they're giving all the confirmations. I went in and I started doing my work as soldier's voice. I was first doing spiritual work as a Reiki healer, and then they were using that to make fun of me, that I can do magic with my hands and stuff. So I had to become this whole other person and stop who, I was wanting to be at one point, because I was, how do I help so many people that are going through so many problems? Because I was like, there's cancer everywhere. There's, the father of my kids has this. And I was just like, what's going on, And I'm like, maybe it's an emotional thing. And I geared towards Reiki healing and everything. So I had to stop all that, and I used all my platforms to do what I do as Soldier's Voice, to help people become aware of what was going on, what they were doing, So that's a little introductory.
So this is a very important day for you, but I think it's really important again that we are part of this disclosure, and that each person brings their personal experience to really translate what's been happening, not only regarding this, but also different topics that have to do with the veterans' trauma and people in the military suffering from different types of traumas. We have addressed the question of this. There's obviously many reasons also why the military soldiers have experienced some very, very traumatizing experiences in what they've been through. Would any of you two would like to share a little bit on what would be some of these experiences? This way we have an idea exactly what we're talking about regarding these people's experiences.
I would like to chime in. I think that one of the biggest things that would help them right now is to be able to understand what their eyes have seen, what they were made to do, and what really happened, because it's all connecting right now at this time. They go in with full passion and love for humanity, to protect and fight for humanity. And we were going through a time where our defenses were taken over, and they were screwed. They were doing horrible things to them, and doing horrible things to us. But one of the hardest things that they've seen, they go in signing non-disclosure agreements. They go in as a guinea pig, and for them to do anything that they want to them. I'm not saying all military factions are like this, but the compartmentalization of these defenses in our military system was infiltrated or taken over at some point. And I was always advocating for what had happened to them here, but then more started surfacing about the children, the underground tunnels, what's going on right now, and a lot
trafficking.
of their,
let's say the words.
Let's say the word trafficking, yes. So a lot of their PTSD is that people were not going to be able to wrap their heads around what they have seen and what they were made to do. I already had a following of a lot of military members that knew that something had happened to them, and I gained a following of a lot of men in the military that had been through this, and they were telling me, yeah, I'm messed up, sending me pictures of like what it looked like for them to go to the bathroom, like with this blood in the toilet and stuff. So they were like, yes, okay. So when the trafficking was going on, and about the children and everything going on, that's when they started messaging me, telling me, even cops, like I had messages from cops telling me, yes, this is going on. This was 2016, 2017, 2018, when this started coming to light. And they were like, it's true, keep talking, because they cannot. So the big reason behind Soldier's Voice is because I became their voice. They couldn't do it. So, and I wasn't, it wasn't easy at the time either. I was already saying something about the paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria at the time that they didn't like, because going back to that, to explain that a little bit, it's paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. The nocturnal part is when your red blood cells are replenishing itself. So what was happening to him is that his red blood cells, a percentage of his red blood cells were being created abnormally. He was missing 2 proteins that would link the red blood cell to protect it. So a certain percentage of his red blood cells were being attacked. His own body was attacking itself, and then it was going through the process of releasing all the dead blood cells that he had out through his urine. So he was given a life expectancy of 11 years. That 11-year mark was coming close. So I was desperate, and I started looking for, is there any new updates to this? Is there anything that can help him, you know, or people who have this? So I started doing research on it, and I came across this research that had been done 10 years after he was diagnosed that said it was caused, that paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria was caused by two factors. One is total bone marrow failure, and the other one is total, it's genetic mutagenesis of the first and second kind. So that was the information that they didn't want getting out there, because that has a lot to do with our children and the MTHFR genes, mutations, and what's really going on. So
Dawn, sorry, I'm sorry to cut you, but you're
No, yeah.
talking about really important things, and I want to make sure that if people want to, because I know you're careful about your words, you don't want to say too much for. Is there ways? I'm sorry, I'm cutting you, but in which people can really access this information, like in more detail, if they want to, if this is kind of wake up call for them, that they can really go to and read more about this. If there's links,
Yes.
I'll put them under my video. So I'm just telling people if there's links, I will, so people can do more research, their own research. It's important for each of us to do our own research and find this for ourselves and realize with our own experience that this is real. So I'm sorry to cut you, but I think it's important that we mention that so people know that there's more to, even more.
I
to what you're
agree.
saying.
It
Yeah.
took me a lot of research and a lot of time and a lot of questioning to get to where I was. And I do have all the links available. I have a BitChute channel that has an important documentary about what was really happening to them. And underneath that documentary is my research, is the link to what I found leading to that research information about paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. And I'm also on Telegram. I have the documentary also listed there, pinned there, and I can add links to it. I have
Perfect.
not, yeah, but I will.
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, it's interesting you have that part of the military, which is obviously what they put in them. And then we have the complexity too of how they start to experience and witness all these atrocities. And I mean, there's so many levels there. Even to be honest with you, the women have go through a different level of experiences. I mean, but I'll get
The
into
military
that.
wife life,
Yeah.
you know, because they can't say anything to their wives, and the wives just have to, and they don't know how to, they don't know how to deal with what it is. They think they were assuming it was like something else, like, and then the drinking problem as well,
Yep.
or something that they pick up because of not being able to cope with what their eyes saw and what their souls had to feel. I mean, I had some of these soldiers messaging me saying that some of their own did this to these children, and they were asked to keep watch at towers at certain places. You know, I was sent a screenshot of this hearing that was going on where they were saying that they were told to look out while they were trafficking people.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
This
so
guy,
complex. It's so
yes,
complex.
and they were there. It's so hard for them to speak up because he couldn't tell me his real name. He couldn't tell me anything. He had a fake name going and a fake picture image going to hide his identity so that he wouldn't be, because if you go across those and like what happened to I'm sorry, not doctor, Gerald Schwartz, Lance Corporal Gerald Schwartz in the military, when he did try to speak up and go against it and not get it, he was put in a 3-month confinement, where it was and the worst kind of confinement as well. They gave him a hearing, but during that hearing, they said, "We'll hear you, but we will not comment." So refusing it, that's how they were, many were tricked into getting it and going for it, because they weren't giving true informed consent on what was really going on.
Absolutely. Vicky, you started mentioning an aspect I think it's perhaps important to also address, the question of, and you didn't go deep into it. I don't know how deep you want to go in there. I'm going to let you decide that. The question of perhaps women in the military.
Yeah.
Would you like to address that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually met a wonderful young lady who was in the military, and it like I said, it's so many layers of traumas, you know, like in her situation, she was violated, you know, by the military. And on top of that, you know, she had issues in her home, which is another story. It started at home and it ended up, you know, the poor girl ended up having that situation with military members, you know. So she comes back, obviously, with PTSD and with all sorts of things. And it's heartbreaking because you can, you know, you can tell, thank goodness she seems like she's getting to a point where she's working at it. And she's opening up, you know, she's a friend of, you know, we have a circle of young ladies and she's one of them. And this is one thing I'm interjecting here, and it's something because as I go through this, I feel like it's becoming clear of what I want to do, and it's to give the voice to them at some points where they feel ready to speak, and she's ready to speak. So I wish to eventually, I told her, are you ready to talk? Because I will interview you, but not in YouTube probably. I'll probably do it in, I have a podcast that I started that I'm trying to revive. And with the podcast, at least, you know, it's not, you can't see them, you can hear them. So maybe it'll feel comfortable for them to talk. So she's ready, and hopefully she'll bring light to other layers of things that are happening. So it's very convoluted. You know, it's not only that you're going to the army or to the, you know, to serve, but within serving, not only are you getting this, you know, but women are getting violated, you know, people are seeing things that they shouldn't be seeing, you know, and then they can't talk about it. So how do you, I mean, all that is building up. And to top it all off, just a little story. I recently was talking to a friend of mine that we have a mutual friend that was recently, well, like a year ago, when they remember the Afghanistan, they were sending out troops for the situation of releasing, you know, getting the troops out of military and civilians out of Afghanistan during that time. He's a Buddhist member, and he was telling me he couldn't tell me exactly why, where and when and how and why he was leaving, but he was called for duty. And just recently, our mutual friend told me his story, that when he came back, he had an intervention because he was about to terminate his life. I mean, he was at the point that he had it all planned out, and it was a miraculous thing that there were people around that saw him, and they said they noticed this guy's gonna do it, you know, and they intervened, and thank goodness he's now happily married and had a baby. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now because somebody saw it and was attentive enough to see it and intervene. And he's one that I'm trying to eventually talk to when he's ready, because this is something that you can bring up and some people don't want to talk about it, but he's probably someone that I would love to obviously interview and find out, you know, obviously what gets them to that point. And obviously we know that sometimes they don't have the tools. Most of the times they don't have the tools. They don't know what it is. They're feeling horrible. They have these triggers and they just can't function. You know, what they internally going through mentally, physically, and emotionally is just, I can understand, because at one point I kind of was there. So I can understand that there's this point that you want to exit because you can't deal with these emotions. You can't deal with these chemicals going through your body. The fear factor, the fight or flight is a horrible feeling. And if you don't have tools, or you have somebody beside you to tell you it's going to be okay, just let it ride, and we'll find a way to get. But if you don't have anybody, especially men, that they're taught not to talk, that they have to man up, they have to suck it up, and and to show and to talk about it is it's not courageous. You have to suck it up, but it's actually the opposite. It's courageous that you talk about it, because it's going to help other people, talk about it and have a solution. But it's so convoluted, because see how they trained us to shut up. They bully you
Yes.
from day one, as a
That is
child,
one of the biggest problems right now
yeah.
with yeah.
As a man, and it's women, we at least talk. So going to that, interesting, the CDC has a website, obviously, and I looked up, okay, what is what is the number one death, and I looked up too, how the veterans, how many deaths, because I wanted to understand the numbers and the whys. Unfortunately, it's like 18 to 22 vets commit suicide every single day.
Oh my God.
Okay. So here we're running like chickens without a head, because of this thing that, that's flying around, what I'm talking about, or what it is. And we have veterans that every day, even one per hour, is taking his life, So, and then you go
it's
to the
sad.
CDC website, and you see that one of the top main deaths, is suicide. Out of the 10, kind of like 10, suicide is one of them. Okay. And then the top one, I mean, that's probably another subject, is poisoning. So,
Yeah.
and then you got the in between. But it's very perplexing, what they're putting out there as a major issue, when the major issue is that we're doing it to ourselves.
They were keeping that disconnect the whole time, because the VVA was turning their backs on them, telling them that whatever what they were feeling was in their head.
Yeah.
They go in, I mean, they deserve so much, and they come out like
Helpless.
yes, completely helpless, homeless. I ran into a homeless veteran who was making explosion noises, had rotten cheese coming out of his bag. He smelled horrible. And you think to yourself, these are the people that were like, what did he see? What did he live? What got him to this point? And why aren't we doing anything about it? Like, how is he homeless? And you're telling me that he was in the military? This is not something, was a horrible disconnect, and horrible things were really happening that we just could not wrap our minds around at the time. That would, of course, I mean, if you have some celebrities in Hollywood that have lost it at one point, okay, and they do get programmed in the military. I've had them tell me that they know they've been programmed. So do the celebrities. The celebrities are a different type of soldier for these people. So yes, we are just coming to that realization of the programming that we've had in all aspects of our lives. I'm talking about even religion, which is going to be the most hardest one for people to come to terms with, but everything, the way we were in school, having to raise hands, asking for permission to do everything, that in itself is like you coming out and you're asking for permission. What do I do next? What do I do next? And there isn't this self-motivation teaching. There isn't this what is your intuition tell you type teaching, independence, and respect for one another, and love for one another. It's been there, like, terribly.
They knew exactly what they were doing, and they did it as soon as we are born. You're in the system. And
that
the
matrix.
funny thing is that your parents are part of the system, so they're doing their job. So
I find it horrible that a mother has to have a child, and 2 weeks later my mom had to go back to work. They're separating that bond that needs to be created so that child doesn't feel safe, doesn't feel the mother,
Yeah.
that the child is supposed to feel so that they feel protected. And then you
Mhm.
wonder, why do they feel so alone, so like they have to seek this outside love where the mom has always had it there, but just the
Mhm.
time was not there because the time and being so extremely busy with what they keep you busy with so that you're not paying attention.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a little older, so I remember my mom and my dad would, as dysfunctional as they were, they would take turns, my dad would work or my mom would stay home. So at least we had one parent, but having them both together obviously was drama.
Oh,
But
man.
Obviously, definitely the point you make of how they have deteriorated the family foundation is definitely their number one thing that they were able to accomplish, because you can see it.
Yeah.
It's like reverse engineering. You can see how all these things eventually, created this result, which is us going through this.
Yeah.
And realizing, okay, now I have to untangle myself and try to go to a certain point where I can help others get untangled.
Yes,
I
the
mean,
unprogramming our own programming.
yeah, I mean, and still to this day, obviously we're all at a certain point working on it still.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I sit down and sometimes I say, oh my gosh, they were really freaking clever.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they knew what they were doing on a
They knew
level.
exactly what they were
Yeah.
doing. I mean, the PTSD itself, when you're in fear, you cannot be creative. You cannot love if you have PTSD. You cannot love yourself. You cannot love others.
Mhm.
I mean, you cannot, it's tunnel vision. You
Yeah.
can't see anything. So if you don't have like somebody that can help you to navigate through that blindness that comes from every angle, or that you have something within you that says, screw this, I got myself into this, I can get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to get out when you're so in it, because it gets you in every angle. I mean, it's a trap.
Mm.
And it's frustrating to see people not being able to have that information, so they too can have some power to say, these mofos got me into this, so screw them, now I'm gonna take this power back.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing, is to let them know, look, you know yes, we have responsibility for our actions, but look what they did. This is what they did. So would that empower you to get out of it? Because I think that would be another
I think knowing and the awareness would create a phoenix within a person.
correct.
Okay. When you're at your lowest, you either really come out of it super extremely powerful,
Mhm.
or you don't.
You come on. It's kind of gaining your sovereignty back again by doing this
Yeah.
kind of inner work and consciousness work in a way. But it's not everybody's necessarily aware of that and wanting to do it or capable of doing it. While we're on this topic about the PTSD itself, I think perhaps it could be interesting for if the two of you or Vicky, or I don't know, would want to talk a little bit more about the actual kind of symptoms of PTSD, like how a person who listens to this, who maybe perhaps the partner of someone who has been in the military, or someone who is himself or herself going through really challenging moments and don't understand what's happening, how would you describe, kind of briefly, what PTSD symptoms are and how you can recognize these elements?
Wow.
There's a lot there to unpack, I'm sure, but just a few elements that are very typical of that could help someone just realize, oh my God, maybe
An
that's
addiction would be one, drowning out,
addiction. Okay.
to drown out to drown out whatever it's too painful for them.
Okay. Any types of addictions will depend on each
mechanism,
person.
drinking, eating, sex. I mean, withdrawing from society. If you go to their house, you can tell they're either hoarding, they're messy, they don't talk too much. some of them, believe it or not, are very, you think they live a normal life, but when you get to a certain point and you see their home, for example, then you can realize, oh my gosh, there's something going on, you know.
And it will take which, I'm sorry, I'm just really trying to be like super tangible here. Like
no, go
what
ahead, please.
give us examples, like how can you recognize those signs, like when you go to the person's place, for example?
Oh gosh, it is very, very complex, you know.
It'll be
Like I
extremely
said,
messy. It
yeah,
will be extremely messy.
Okay.
They won't clean up after themselves.
correct.
There'll be things there for weeks
Yeah,
that they won't get to.
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I have, like I said, I unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, because having somewhat of that type of experience, you can understand, you know, what they're going through. And your health starts to deteriorate, because once you get into PTSD, and that means that you're getting a lot of triggers. For example, with soldiers, you know, obviously they hear something and that triggers their PTSD. They get into this fight or flight, and they start, you know, getting into this war zone. And what you're exerting is these strong chemicals in your body. And when you get these chemicals, everything else, you're in survival, so everything else shut down, you know, meaning your digestion system shuts down, your thinking process shuts down, because you're surviving. So all your blood is going to your extremities, and all this in the center, pretty much only your heart obviously is being crazy.
Okay.
You know, so when you go through these experiences very often, your health starts to deteriorate, because it compromises your mental, emotional, and physical state.
Yeah.
So when somebody's sick, obviously,
They'll become very thin, very thin.
yes, I lost a lot of weight. I was so skinny at one point that I looked at myself, I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill myself, you know, slowly, because, and that, thank goodness, eventually I figured out what the triggers were. And this is a point that is important to understand. Okay, what triggers your anxiety and your fight or flight? You know, if you know there are triggers, then try to move yourself away from the triggers, you know. But that's step one. Then step two is try to work on the symptoms that are massive amount of symptoms. And I'll tell you for sure that 95% of what we go through mentally, emotionally, and physically are due to stress. 5% is usually due to a deformity or something that you're born into this world. But 95% of our illnesses is due to a stress, and it can be a level 1 to a level 10, you know.
Yeah,
but
and an emotion not tended to that builds up as something very bad.
oh my gosh, I
It
mean,
leaves
it's
traces in the body.
oh yeah, I mean, the chemicals that are, I keep saying the chemicals because that can go in through another topic, as you probably know what I'm talking about. The chemicals that you release are so powerful that, I mean, it can drive you nuts, you know. It can,
That's the best turning point. The best part of it, though, is that if you can remember your power, and you can remember why they tried to do this to you, why they tried to do this to our loved ones, why they tried to do this to our children, that power within you is what they're afraid of you realizing you have and coming out of it. So they didn't really want us helping each other, but just hearing each other, talking to each other about it, and asking questions about it, and supporting each other about it, that's right there, just a healing in of itself. Just being able to freaking listen to the person so that they can release it out of them.
And
that's an important. I'm sorry, Vicky.
No, just to tell you that the opposite of fear is love. And love, and Dennis talking yesterday, she was fabulous. She just nailed it, and I can feel it. If you're able to generate that feeling of love or have people around you that has that feeling that can help you, even though you don't feel it at the moment, because when you're in fear, you can't feel love. So
Yeah, you
it's
numb.
you
That
can't.
numbing feeling is so
It's
true. It's
horrible.
real. Yeah.
It's real.
Disconnects you from your
Yes.
Disconnects
emotions.
you.
Mhm.
That they knew, like I said, they knew that in order to disconnect the heart and mind connection, fear was the
The
weapon.
killer. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
So, mhm.
sorry.
No, but just to add to that part of the love, that's where I'm at right now. It's
Mhm.
to love myself and to be able to express love, because it's not easy. You know, you're not born in a family where it's like love is everywhere. You're
It's
born,
true.
and a lot of us are born in a family where there's turmoil. You know, there's survival. You're surviving. You're walking on eggshells. So those moments of love is very sporadic.
Mhm.
You know.
I told my mom
Yeah.
I loved her for the first time when I was 19.
Wow.
I had to do it because she, some of us have this family where there's a huge disconnect between a mother and a daughter, which I do not wish upon anyone. That is horrible. It is the worst. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to my grandmother that she became like that. It's just something that might have happened that the silence generation couldn't speak about,
Mhm.
because it was taboo, or they were touched the wrong way by someone in the family, because these things have been going on, okay,
Yep.
for since since Jesus
Yep.
Christ times, or since
Much
way back
before.
then. Yeah.
It's going on in the family.
And they tell you, oh no, be quiet, don't tell anybody, they're not gonna, and then because you know
Yeah.
you don't say anything. So from mother to daughter to and
Yep.
where does it stop, and where does the
Absolutely.
forgiveness happen, and where does it cut off? Because
they-
no, I am not going to be a victim, and no, I'm not gonna just cut my love for this. No, my love is more important. Love is more important. So yeah, 19.
Wow.
And she didn't know what it was so funny, because I was like, Mom, I love you. And she was like,
She didn't know how to take it, right?
She was
no, yeah,
uncomfortable.
I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it. So she's like, she's fixing her shirt, like,
Pobrecita. So
I love you too, and I'm like, oh my God, that
It was
must have
hard
been like
to
really hard
Eureka
for her,
moment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
At the same time, it's when you look at the big picture from a little bit a step back, you're thinking, all these lives hurt, and yes, it's
Yeah.
about taking our responsibility again and our sovereignty, and knowing how powerful we are to cut these transgenerational lines of hurt and things. But at the same time, the empathy, and the compassion, because we've been raised in a completely sick system, in a matrix where
Mhm.
there was a lot of nefarious intentions. So
Yes, they were causing
yeah,
men
they
to
were
be
causing it.
sick.
It is our part
Okay.
now to own ourselves and to own that
Yeah.
sovereignty and go back and say no. But I mean, still,
Yeah.
there's a reason why all these generations have been suffering.
Well, no, let me not say just men, okay? Because this stuff was also making women sick,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
was making relationships numb to each other
Yep.
because
Yeah.
of this other visualization and like disrespect completely towards the body of a woman or a man or whatnot. And it numbs you. It takes away the beauty, the love, the energy that it's a harvest for the energy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes, yeah, it's war on all levels.
Absolutely.
Grabbed us from every.
We're already kind of, PTSD from the beginning. And then after that, some, go into service, and then, just things get worse and worse. Just to go back on this topic, because, I think all of this is connected, but I really want to focus mostly on, in the military. What would you say for, I guess all people suffering from PTSD, but especially in that particular context we're talking about, military context? What do you feel from both of your experiences? What is the thing or the things that people seem to need the most? Would you say it is just to have a place where they can express what they've been through? Would you say it's more like psychological support? Is it on a societal kind of problem where they're not supported and they're not fitting into the system, which in a way is a good thing, not to fit into this absurd
Right.
world, but that doesn't mean that they have to suffer and being homeless and not having support. And what in your experiences are the things that would be the most useful or would be the most important things we could bring to these people? And in this context we say mostly the military, but what in your experience is the most important things you think these people need?
I think is to be believed,
Mm-hmm.
and for a society to be ready enough to listen to them and be prepared to believe them.
That's important.
And
But our
support.
society right now is barely
Getting there.
coming out of its sleep and discovering what's been out
discovering we
there.
have
I mean,
fake
the kids,
news.
the traffic, the
The
everything.
information has been completely controlled. So they
And
were
that's-
making all these things seem like, oh, they're not real. Oh,
Mhm.
they're not real. Oh, this doesn't exist. Okay, so that is the first step, is realizing that, oh yeah, it's real, because they know that at that awareness right there, when you start believing each other and stop listening
Mhm.
to them, okay, that's where the powerhouse really happens, is
So
we
we have first of us, all of us as a society, be able to believe and wake up to disinformation before we're actually able to help and support these people in a way. I think it's kind of
Yes.
the egg and the chicken, where does it start, and what's your view on this, Vicky?
On the other end, it's important for us to understand and educate ourselves to what you're going through, what exactly is happening to you internally. Why are you going through fight or flight?
Mhm.
There is a reason for that, and to understand too that you got to that point because of what's going on. Not to get into details, but the reason why we're going through this fear and this fight or flight is because we've been put into the situation that our body's reacting to something that we're not, you know, it's traumatic,
Yeah.
I want to ask Vicky a question,
Mhm.
if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, I don't know how long ago you were dealing with the PTSD.
Mhm.
Do you feel like, did you feel very alone in that when you were first realizing what, oh my gosh, these are my triggers, this is what's happening to me? Did you feel like alone at that time, and to now? How do you feel right now? Like, do you feel still alone, or do you feel like things are happening and there's more out there, more people out there that are not as alone as you think anymore?
Yeah. When I first went through it, I did feel alone because I didn't know what I was going through, and I didn't know how to express to others other than I don't feel right. And they noticed it, but they didn't know how to help me, and
And you were numb at this point, like
yeah,
numb.
I'm numb. I'm freaking out. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to work and pay my bills, and I'm going through all this stuff. And but there's always, like I said to Abigail, that there's a part of you, that conscious part of you that's still kind of there with you, meaning that you
Like a
still have
witness.
a gap,
Mm.
a witness, yeah, that you can escape from and try to make sense out of it. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yes.
Even though you're in this crazy loop, there's a little point that you can say, okay, there's some reasoning there that kept me going. And through my Buddhist practice as well, I was able to get some understanding. So, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to get out of this? Because, it's like you're in a rabbit hole, it's like, you got to go back, it's like you're in here, and then now you got to reverse and go back. But yes, I did feel alone at the beginning because I didn't know what I was going through. And I was going from doctor to doctor to doctor at that point when I was in the Western medicine. And they were telling me, you don't have anything, you don't have, tests. They were doing test and test after test, and nothing
My
was coming up.
gosh, you didn't know it was emotional.
And then one doctor finally told me, and that kind of was where it clicked. And I said, oh shit, he says, Vicky, you're stressed out, and you need to take 2 weeks off from work, and you need to calm down.
You need a break. Just being told you need a break must be feeling good.
I want to know what you did during those 2 weeks and how you felt those 2 weeks.
It was a relief because finally I felt there is an answer to what I'm going through because I didn't have the tools. I'm like, okay, my body's freaking out, my mind, my heart, everything is just so when he told me this, it opened the door for me to start looking into it. And that I think those 2 weeks, it calmed me down because he told me I just needed to hear that. Vicky, you need to relax and you need to calm down because all these symptoms are stress related. And I'm like, holy crap.
And you're
You
so
know,
busy working, paying the bills
yes,
and everything that you didn't
yes,
have the time to work on your
exactly.
inner self to figure it out.
Exactly.
Which is the purpose of the
Exactly.
nefarious energies, to make sure
Hmm.
that we don't have time to
And
heal ourselves.
that's where most of us have
Mhm.
been.
Yeah.
It's like, and I had, various episodes in my life because it wasn't my first, but eventually these episodes helped me to go into, okay, I need to figure this out because I wasn't going to medicate myself, even though I tried just to see what the hell it was. And it was the worst sensation to be medicated. I mean, I respect those who will try it, but I didn't want to follow what the protocol was. I just did a 360 and I said, screw this. I got into this, so I'm gonna try to figure out, I'm gonna get out of this. And what I tell people is don't give it a time frame because everybody's different. And you have to give yourself a lot of patience and you have to be very compassionate towards yourself and not get frustrated because it's going to take a little time to get your body, mind, and spirit back into a good place that you can think clearly, that you can open your heart a little bit more. But yes, to answer your question at the beginning, I really felt alone and I didn't want to burden, knowing myself, I don't want to burden my father, my mother, my sister, my family. I
That's
can
it
take,
too, that you feel like you're a burden. That is so sad. Like
yeah.
we should not be feeling like we're a burden. Like, why did we even think that in the first place?
Mhm.
Oh, I don't want to bother somebody else. When you would jump to help somebody else
Yeah.
immediately if they did have a burden.
Yeah.
It's so, heartbreaking, but that's
Yeah.
one of the other things that I don't know where that programming came in, but like, oh,
That's another one.
be very helpful, but oh no, asking
Guilt.
for help is like too
Mhm.
much. That
Right
right there
away.
is a big one too. Like
The
this
shame
programming.
and guilt about
Yeah.
needing eventual help. But you,
Like you don't
Dawn,
want to,
you've asked this really important question to Vicky, and I have a feeling that um you probably had an experience like that. Would you like to share a little bit with us about this eventual PTSD?
I don't know if PTSD is the same thing as depression, but I was feeling it more as like a deep depression, numbness,
Yeah.
yeah.
very severe loss of weight. I'm
Mhm.
already tiny and petite as it is, and I was wearing, like, in high school I was wearing size 0 jeans.
Mm.
So I was very bad. I went through the depression with everything that was going on with the father of my kids,
And then trying to
what I
raise a
was
family.
trying to raise a family, realizing what was really going on in the world, and that nobody could see what I could see, and that everybody thought I was insane and crazy.
Mhm.
I did go through it horribly, so I did feel that I needed, like, B12 shots for like 4 weeks, one a week, to get myself back up.
Yeah.
Um but the one thing that it did feel relief during that time was that taking time to myself and cutting
Mhm.
everybody out and saying screw you to everyone who didn't believe me.
Mhm.
um and I knew my truths, and I did have my two little ones, so I was like, I can't do this.
Wow.
I
Mm.
have to be, not only for the two little ones, but my other two older ones that I had as well, that had just lost their father, so it was a
Wow.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
The fact
But
that what you said is important about screw people who don't believe me. And I think that's kind of seems
Mhm.
to be what's going on with, for example, these veterans who are coming back and are not being able to get back into the system because they're not believe, and they know what they've been through, and they're not gonna like lie to themselves and say, oh, okay, maybe I just invented this, so they believe in their thing. And do you feel that this is one of the reasons why they're there's such difficulty in getting back into a normal, I don't like the word normal life, because whatever is normal in our lives, but you know what I mean, like a healthy kind of place where they can be surrounded with people they love, or having kind of a healthy relationship to their bodies, to their life, to, you know, do you feel that has a lot to do with it?
Yeah, that's very close to it. The fact that I stopped trying to have conversations with people who weren't believing what I was saying, or not accepting what I was saying, was what made me get to the point where I'm like, screw everybody. And I had to, you know, do just
Your
me
inner
internally,
work.
like my inner work, and be okay with, you know, what I knew myself, and that I loved humanity so hard that I was going to do no matter what it took, even them being this way towards me, to continue doing what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, saying screw you to the ones who didn't believe me, but it wasn't going to stop me from trying to wake others who would have the ability to hear, because I did still have the sense that there are others out there who are going through this, who are feeling it and need the answer. They need that connection that I had that at that one point sitting at my job, and then everything just came. You know, you never know if you could be that connection for someone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing is that they created a bad stigma around the veterans coming back. You know, people, another type of indoctrination, you know, because I mean, why wouldn't you welcome back your soldier, you know, in open arms, and tell them, you know, we're here for you, thank you for serving, instead of having the stigma of their mental issues, which for me, mental, emotional, and physical issue is a symptom. You know, they like to name things, they like to label things and put a bad stigma to it. That at the
And
end
they
of the
scoff
day,
it off as if it's something normal, like, oh, it's just PTSD.
yeah,
Oh, it's just PTSD.
Like bad dreams, you know, like a little thing.
Yeah.
no, it's a symptom of extreme stress.
Yeah. It's like, no, go back to work and pay your bills.
Yeah.
But what I find really interesting is how and that comes to what you were saying, Dawn, about regarding you deciding to, and you as well, Vicky, of course, to just, you know, at some point deciding, okay, I'm gonna do the inner work, I'm gonna face my fears or my triggers, and consciously know what it is. So we're talking about a form of resilience here, where someone for some reason will decide that this is too much, I'm gonna do something about it, and some others won't be able to.
Oh yeah.
What do you feel are like the elements that will give this resilience to certain peoples and not others? For example, in the cases of the veterans, does it have to do with the amount of horror they've been through, that at some point you're so broken that you cannot develop that resilience? Or does it simply have to do with your psychological state, who you are as a person, like you're just going to, you know, bounce from this or not? Like, what have you noticed in the experiences you've had with the people you know in that field?
Well, from my understanding, obviously I cannot talk on behalf of a soldier that's seen horrific things. I cannot put myself in their shoes, because it's a different type of trauma, obviously. But again, I go back to the fact that when you inquire instead of giving in, when you say, why am I going through this? If at least that question comes into mind, and not to just think that it's just what it is, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know where that curiosity comes, I guess is what I'm saying. There has to be a point where you say you're curious about why the hell you're going through this, or are you just going to go through the whole facets of deteriorating and getting to the point that because these emotions and these feelings and these thoughts and nightmares are horrendous, that you don't find a gap in some place to say, you know, I think I can do this, or I can't, you know. I can tell you that feeling these symptoms is it's very horrendous. I mean, to be either depressed or anxious or having panic attacks, being in that position, it's hard to rationalize when you're there. That's the problem.
It is.
So there has to be, what is that something that holds you and it says, you know, you're not giving up, you know. For me, it was obviously I had a bigger picture. I said, I'm not going to surrender to this, because I was seeing that this was being done to us, and I was not going to surrender to that, because then they win, you know. So no matter if I had to crawl through,
That shows your unconditional love
yeah,
for just
absolutely.
humanity,
Mhm.
period.
No, I think
And yourself.
at the end, yeah.
Well,
At the
yes,
end, you
Which
know, you
is,
but
want to
it's
break the cycle, you know.
yeah.
yeah.
You feel like you know, we're at a point at a junction where we're like breaking the cycle as we speak.
Yeah.
One of the other reliefs was knowing I wasn't alone. And I know these, platforms and uh things were meant to try to keep us misinformed and dumbed down, and they censored a lot of us, but a lot of us were able to also use this and find others to
Mhm.
say, okay, well, some people may think I'm crazy, some people may not know what I'm going through, but there are many others going through the same thing I am. There is no way I'm the only human in this world that is feeling this and that is this numb at this point,
Mm.
because it's like we cannot continue just being robots, continuing with no feelings and just assume that this is going to be great. At some point, somebody's going to lose their freaking mind over it and their sanity, trying to be something that they were molded into this whole time.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
not feeling alone
Yeah.
and creating those support groups, finding,
Mhm.
brothers and sisters, no matter where. I mean, we are more connected than ever
Right.
now than our poor parents who didn't have anything to connect with, and they
Mhm.
really couldn't reach out
Yeah.
to anyone. I mean, much less try to phone somebody in another state that was like that cost you money because it was, in another
Yeah.
state. We've come so far in technology, and we still need to go way further. Because, dude, come on, give me holographic technology already. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
this question of community is absolutely crucial for sure. And I mean, not only for veterans, but also all of us. I mean, who, as a humanity who are going through this awakening process and realize, all our pain is, we're not the only ones to go through it. We've been already talking for like about an hour. Time flies, but we're not done here. But I would like to kind of orient the last part of this interview.
I'll say it, without censorship and allowing people to talk, okay, this would have sped like way
Bingo.
faster than what it already has been.
Yeah, of
On
Because
that
the
note,
reason why they were so delayed and weren't waking up is because they were not letting the information come out. I had
absolutely
5,000 people in Facebook, and not one of them were seeing my post.
wow.
incredible.
And one thing that is very important that you mentioned is that we're, you know, we were so censored, and we couldn't even talk about it, and just not being able to express yourself creates that anxiety. So it's
Mhm.
like a catch-22, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
holy crap, you know, I'm going through this, but I can't talk about it.
Yeah.
But where do you let it out?
Yeah. So this sense of community and having platforms to communicate is really something important.
Uncensored platforms.
Uncensored platform, obviously,
Right.
which is not easy to find, and
Yeah.
perhaps easier also to find for people of our generation. But again, if we go back to veterans, maybe some of these people might be of a generation where they're less comfortable with, I don't know, with different platforms. So it's perhaps this feeling of loneliness and aloneness and disconnection
Mhm.
might be also
I say
something.
take the lead and create the support group yourself. Be
Yeah,
that person.
absolutely. Mhm.
Be that person.
That's where
We're a race of leaders. Our dear Alex Collier says we're a race of leaders. We're here to kind of take things into our own hands and sovereign sense and do it.
It's
But
remembering that we're leaders, because I also had a problem with that too. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah,
I don't know how to
I'm
I
like,
don't know how to do that. What do you
I
mean?
don't want people to think something bad about me, like I'm doing an ego trip or something.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not
mm,
going to take into my power. But in the last part of this interview, I would really like to address the question of solutions, like we're already kind of deep into that with the question of talking, expressing ourselves, finding communities with whom we can exchange and share our truths. And what are other suggestions, elements, tools that you personally as persons have experienced, but also that on a more kind of theoretical level that could bring about help for all people dealing with PTSD. And in a way, all humans right now are kind of basically going through to PTSD, but I mean, we're specifically with our more broken members of our society, which have been through such horrific things. What would be, in your views, different tips here and there that could help in some ways?
Go back to when you were a child and find that one thing that really made you happy. Or find something that you really enjoy doing and
Your
put time
bliss,
into
like
that. Give yourself that time. First, time for you.
Absolutely. And expressing yourself is so important because we've been so suppressed, even as a child, without knowing. My parents suppressed me, because they were suppressed. So it's like, ripple effect, and you can't talk about it. It's taboo. You can't express yourself. So, when you become an adult, it blows up because the lid can hold so much that when that lid opens up, then all this stuff is coming out. So it's important to allow a place where you can speak your mind without being judged, and having the support and love, and being able to recognize the triggers, because sometimes we have triggers that we don't want to let go of. Like in a relationship, if you're in a bad relationship and the guy or the girl is triggering you, then you have to make a decision of getting out of that situation so you can start healing, because you're not going to be able to heal within that situation.
The distancing can be important.
Yes, it's important to recognize the trigger and say, okay, what triggers me? Sound, something that I'm looking at, something that I'm even tasting, or you can
A smell.
be surprised what the triggers can be. So so you can start helping your body, your mind, your spirit to start to relax and come back to homeostasis, because when all these factions are triggered, it's hard to see clarity. So it's baby steps.
It's like we forget that we have a soul that we need to nourish. Like, remember, we are soul. We do have a soul. We have a spirit. We're not just some body constantly moving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's many things, but you have to meet the person where they're at, because not everything, it's not, like I said, one size fits all, Like if somebody's going to be on, like somebody's having a panic attack, what do you do if you start having a panic attack? You can focus on your breath. You can have somebody next to you and just say, I'm here with you until this goes away. Or believe it or not, you can get into a cold shower and it'll just knock it out in seconds.
One of the things, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the things that I dealt with anxiety attacks, I would envision myself as this tree. So I would pretend that my legs were the roots, and that I would start rooting into the ground. Like, okay, I'm feeling the soil, I'm feeling the rocks, I'm feeling the water, I'm feeling the moisture. But then I'm like, okay, I'm getting too grounded. And then I'll start, okay, go up to the trunk, you're the trunk. And then my hands, I start having to, because I did have this claustrophobia, anxiety of claustrophobia as well. So I had to feel like it's open, I'm okay. So I put my arms out, and my arms were the branches. Yes, I'm free. My hair's the leaves of the tree. That's a beautiful
meditation, actually.
Yeah. So that really helped me. It really helped me a lot. And another one was I couldn't go to the mall without freaking out and being there like wanting to run out. So I'm like, okay, I need to chill. So one of my friends told me to pretend that I was inside of like a disco ball, but like a sphere, a pretty one, with like a mirror. It was just like an outside mirror, and inside you're safe. And this outside sphere was like spinning around and shooting away everybody's energy, because
back
I was
to
like,
them.
yes, out, Yeah. So that also helped me. It's finding your own technique and knowing that there are techniques that exist that can help you with those things, because the intention really is everything. I don't know, if you want to pretend that you're a car, or your favorite car, or some bird, or an animal that you really love, it could be very hard, I know, if you're not aware, right? I guess it's helping people become aware of these tools, of your mind. Your mind is a very powerful tool. My Reiki master healed his cancer by pretending that he had soldiers inside of him attacking the cancer.
Awesome.
So it's like this power of the mind that they have. The war that we're literally in is that temporal war. The war of the mind is your mind is very powerful, and they remembering your soul, remembering your thoughts, your consciousness. There we go. Not just this brain, but your consciousness. And your imagination as a kid, things that you could imagine, that they're like, no, stop daydreaming, get back to work. That's the magic is in our ability to imagine.
And like you said, Vicky, as well, in our previous interview, when we were talking about mindfulness, this question of, like you say, to separate, to see the space between words or between moments, and that space, that void between these challenging moments, can be the place where you can find an exit and just go back into your breathing work, or into your conscious work, or whatever it is you do. It's your own thing, but I think that's
meditation is powerful. But it's what I tell people is, it's not easy, because as soon as you sit down, you want to move. You can't stay, you can't stay still. But that's part of it. So understanding that is part of it.
Yeah.
Then you say, okay, so my body is just responding to my thoughts. The nervous system that is trying to, obviously, it's not in homeostasis. So give yourself 5 minutes, and then little by little increase it. And you'll see that your body starts to, and your mind together starts to relax, and eventually you'll keep going. But at the beginning, it's like taming a wild horse. It's like you're in a rodeo. You're like, yeah.
It is. I couldn't meditate for the life of me when I first started. I'm like, I was
overthinking
so much. I was thinking so much, like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do now? Am I supposed to think anything?
And there's this expectation that you have to do something, right? Like there's like it's really about doing something, meditation, right?
Women like to multitask. So imagine.
Am I supposed to see something yet?
Yeah, no, you sit your ass down and be patient. It's one breath at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I gotta do this, and you have to do this, and then the bird goes by, and then the squirrel goes by, and then
yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have distractions everywhere. I'm itching, I gotta go to the bathroom, and then but come back, sit down, and eventually you'll start calming down. But your nervous system is out of whack, so you have to eventually slowly get it to relax.
Yeah. Would you say, and we're gonna slowly close this conversation soon, but would you say that meditation would be even more difficult for people who have been or are suffering from PTSD, in the sense that, is there an actual thing going on with all the hormones and the juices within and everything that's happening when you're in that state that makes it absolutely impossible almost to meditate?
That's why I said it's like it's not a size fits all for everybody.
Yeah.
You would have to meet the person.
Like I would think maybe binaural beats or something. That's something that they can cover the noise, the outside noise with, and have binaural beats going. Because I feel like my nephew is, has autistic. He's autistic, and his triggers are lightning, thundering. He starts getting already like scared of when it starts raining. So it has not been the easiest thing. So the only way is just to make him unaware that it's not raining, or it's not, and that's difficult because he's already really aware it is. And maybe some noise, or like the binaural beats. Sound frequency is a really big thing right now, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, singing bowls. It is very powerful.
High frequency.
Okay, these frequencies are very powerful. They can get to your heart. They can get to your pineal gland, your throat chakra, your all the places it really needs to get to. So I feel like I would say that maybe help start there if you're one of those that is triggered by noise and sound, and or have, you know, the hard thing is that some of these military are suffering with tinnitus. Which is, you know, this. So there's a detoxing process that you need to go through, which zeolites really help with, and, you know, get on the zeolites, and parasitic cleanses as well, like do an you know, a parasite cleanse, because right now this is the war that we're in right now, is the parasitic cleanse and heavy metal wars. I'm going to put it out there, questioning whether if cancer is really cancer or a parasite that is inside you, consuming you.
There's so many ways we can go with this conversation, because I tell you, you said the cancer with the virus is another one, because I've been reading about it, and it's getting to the point that just to say a little bit about it, that it's the actual definition of virus is actually poison. But with that said, there's no really this contagious thing. It's just what's coming in that the body's reacting to it, because it shouldn't be in the body. So,
and for the safety of the video, none of us are professional medical professionals or anything like that. But for the safety of this video, this is, you know, we're just, you know, we're studying here. This is for learning purposes.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn, for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, I'm gonna bring each of you to tell us a little bit more about the links you want to share with us. I know, for example, Vicky, you talked about your beautiful podcast that you have.
Oh gosh.
And I'm going to put the link the same way I will do with Dawn as well, with the different links you want to put there, because people can contact you if they have, if for example, they have either you know, experiences with PTSD, or as a loved one or a veteran. You know, as we have said, these people want to be able to be heard. So if you guys want to be also platforms, because you know, Dawn, you have many platforms, including a YouTube channel, and you, Vicky, you have this beautiful also this beautiful platform on, it's not on Spotify. Is it on Spotify? Yeah,
actually it was on Anchor, and then Spotify bought Anchor, so it's, you're putting me in the spot, which is good, because it makes me want to start, you know, reviving it. Because I started it in 2020 when this whole shit show happened. And I started interviewing people and getting their story, which was heartfelt. And because right now what we need is the story of the people, not this bullshit that's being put on the news. That's not the news. The news is the
people.
It's people.
Yeah.
So that's,
and I mean, we may exchange the best way we can here with our own experiences, but I think it's, like you say, it's really up to each individual to bring their story, either as a veteran, someone who has, you know, been through PTSD in their personal life. All of this is really super important. So you two beautiful ladies are, in that way, your platforms, and you're helping and contributing to this beautiful, not only disclosure movement, but also bringing people to express their truth. And that's super important, but also in that way, help them, you know, go through perhaps some healing process, and giving them support in that way. So that's extremely precious. So I thank you, both of you, for everything that you are and everything that you do. What you've brought today is very enriching, and bringing your own personal experience in a very candid and very honest and ways is beautiful. I thank you very much for both of you in that way. You're very precious, and you're always welcome on this channel if you feel like bringing more information or having more chats on these really important subjects. The platform is always available to all for this. So I want to thank each of you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this
opportunity. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Take great care of yourself, and people, all of you viewers, if you have had similar experiences and difficult experiences, talk about it. Express yourself, find ways to express yourself. It can be publicly, it can be not publicly, it can be through a form of creativity, writing, whatever. Finding the ways to heal yourself and go back within yourself and do that inner journey will definitely help, I'm sure. So have a lovely day, and thank you again, ladies.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Hello, beautiful soul. You have been on a spiritual journey for some time, or perhaps you're just starting your inner journey. And you probably have questions that remain unanswered right now, although all your answers lie within yourself, as always. But sometimes we need someone to just give us a little nudge. And personally, as an intuitive and a transmitter and a creator, I have created my own type of approach where I offer the people the opportunity to ask a few questions, a maximum of 5 questions, where I will provide from my inner guidance, which is the fractal of source that I am and that you are as well as my high vibration guidance will provide a vocal transmission. And also we will be creating an artwork just for you, unique and original, based on your questions, and the motifs and the colors that will be chosen for the artwork will have in some way some information about the answers to your question. And I will also use a piece of music that, either through the frequency of its melody, of its words, will also give you some clues as to what the answers to your questions might be. And I only serve as a nudge, as a pointer, in order for you to, after that, resonate or not with this information, and then you can pursue your own spiritual and inner journey, just having been just helped a little bit on the path. So if you're interested in a creative intuitive transmission session, which I call CIT, I invite you to follow the link that's below in the description of this video, and on my website, abigailrichard.com/CIT. And don't hesitate to ask for more information or just book a session. Have a lovely day. Bye.